month of June 1778 became much more than the pinnacle of the spring and summer planting. With news of an impending force of Indians, and most likely John Butler and his Royal Greens, there was much more to consider than seeing and tending to the crops. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Stephen Harding Jr.
Work on our lands cannot stop for anything, as what we plant now shall get us through the long winter, and the last 2 winters proved to be longer than most. Thus as it was on June 30th, we set out as we had been doing, traveling with ourselves and the Hadsell party, northwards towards the fields in the pre-dawn hours as the early illumination of approaching day was upon us. It was late in the afternoon when 2 men who were known to us, but whose allegiance were suspect, suddenly appeared. One Michael Showers and one Frederick Anchor greeted me. Showers had offered that he would stand sentry, while I might join my brothers in the work yonder in the fields. I accepted this offer, though found it odd that these men would be this far north from the main settlement. After some time, I'm not sure exactly, the sun was beginning its descent beyond the western mountain. I returned to check on Showers and Anchor. I found nothing more than our water bucket lying upon the ground. At once, I felt an overwhelming sense of dread. I quickly summoned the young Rogers boy, part of our party, to help me with the team of horses. In fact, I was very clear to tell the boy that we needed to return to Fort Jenkins quickly. It was not more than 5 or 10 minutes when we returned with a scene to the team of our wagon. This is when we saw a most horrific scene. As we were situated about 60 or more yards away on the higher ground, we could see Ben and Stuckley heading down to the ravine adjacent to the cornfields, towards a small body of water right next to a deer lick. As my brothers moved further down the ravine, the attack from the Indians and several Tories was fierce. They were able to see the attack, but with little time to prepare. They fought wildly to fend off the cowardly ambush, though they were eventually overtaken by sheer numbers of the enemy. I saw them struck several times, though I could not see them once they fell upon the ground. I knew that their deaths would be quick, though brutal. In this moment, while I could feel everything growing numb, I frantically told the young Rogers that we must escape quickly and quietly. We moved westward with the speed of a whitetail. As we were able to find the cover of the woods, I whispered to Rogers that we had to get deep into the woods quickly, where we could not be seen by the enemy. I now know that Showers and Anchor had a hand in this, and that we had to get as far away as possible, knowing that they would probably send a group of men to find us. Our goal at this point was simple: survive and make back passage to the Wyoming Valley to warn the others if the enemy is now at hand.
It was probably another 5 minutes to 10 before we got the team hitched and got them down to the main path. It was at that point I saw Mr. Stevens stretch his head up, and in an instant, it looked as though he had lost his color. It was at this point I heard these yells, which I would later learn was some type of war whoop. Mr. Stevens whispered with his teeth grinding, "Get down." Within a few seconds, he whispers, "We gotta run as fast as the wind to them woods yonder." At one point, I thought my heart was gonna explode. But we kept running. Mr. Stevens says we have to get further west of the enemy, as they would likely follow the river. But he said they probably knew how many of us there were, that they would know who escaped and who didn't. I just followed him. As we got deeper in the woods, we could hear some distant voices. At one point, we thought we could even see some campfires, but we just kept going, only slowing down to make sure that Mr. Stevens was going in the right direction. We was going in a direction that I'd never gone in, but Mr. Stevens said he knew how to get us back home. He said it would take longer, but he seemed sure that the enemy would not follow us this far away from the river. It was pitch black when we got back to the main flats of the valley. Can't even tell you what time it was, but it was late. Immediately, Mr. Stevens got me to my family, and in a darn hurry to talk with Mr. Jenkins and a few others. I think they was gonna go up right to see Colonel Dennison himself. Lots was happening, but I knew we made it out of there, and that seemed enough for the moment. Still, I had no idea what happened to the others beyond Mr. Ben and Mr. Stuckley. Mr. Stevens was brave, his face like a stone. It was as if he had lots to do, and couldn't even worry at that moment what happened to his brothers. I couldn't sleep. Real sad that some of our people got killed, but yet happy we escaped with our lives.
I'm Content Hansel. My husband is Mr. James Hansel. He is a wonderful man, dedicated to his family, his community, a man of integrity, a man of honor, a hardworking man, a man who loves his family and is a blessing to all of us who know him. 16 years ago, we left Connecticut with our 3 oldest children to assume a better life here in the beautiful Wyoming Valley. Connecticut at that time, of course, a small colony, was filled with people and had left little opportunity for those looking to grow. And we found that opportunity here. Little did we know that when we arrived here, we would come to land that was already deeply contested between the native people who were here and the people of the colony of Pennsylvania. And we found ourselves as unwelcome from both of them. Now, of course, besides our problems with Pennamites and Indians, a new problem came along onto the horizon: the current difficulties with England. And of course, like the other people of Connecticut, we took the side of the rebels and support independence from the tyrant and his corrupt government. And we took that side. We were asked to raise regiments for Connecticut, which we did, and our men went off to serve. Those of us who stayed behind worked at everything we could to support those regiments and the needs of General Washington's army. Well, it became apparent over time that that horrible, violent conflict was coming to us. We petitioned the Continental Congress to please return our men to the valley to help protect us, and they refused. Luckily for us, some of those men took it upon themselves to return. And then the horrible events of June 30th took place. That morning, my husband, our son James, and a number of other gentlemen went out to work the fields as they often did. There was nothing unusual about the day. It was a common occurrence, but they didn't return. And then we got the news of what happened to Benjamin and Stuckley Harding. Horrors so wicked, so evil, that this young man should never have witnessed them, for which this man is partially responsible. What has happened to my husband? Where is my son? Where is my son-in-law, Mr. Carr? I fear there are even worse horrors ahead for us all.
With all the madness erupting before us, there is a great deal at stake. My husband Daniel has been taken captive. My father and brother have not returned. I fear for their fate. Mrs. Jenkins relayed the terrifying account of her husband John's captivity. If it were not for a strong will and divine providence, I dare say he would not have survived. My beloved, my father and James, their fate is bleak. Our Westmoreland settlement is dependent on the life-sustaining crops of grain which Daniel and father labor to cultivate. We are dependent on the flour which is milled from their grain. We need it to produce our daily bread, as well as food to sustain us through the lean winter months. Without them, all shall be lost. The thought leaves me inconsolable. Mother is overwrought with distress, and she is on the verge of breakdown. May God protect us from the evil that seeks to destroy us. We had good news that young brother Johnny arrived back at Jenkins Fort late last evening. He was greatly shaken. Colonel Dennison immediately took him to Dennison to relay the events of the ambush. Colonel Dennison must act swiftly to keep us safe. May God give us guidance and protection through these dark and dismal times.
Hear ye, hear ye, hear ye. It is about time that this assembly be told of facts, and hearken to hear truths about virtues such as honor, loyalty, integrity, and tradition. I, as my father before me and his father before he, were born onto this beautiful continent, not as rebels of a disreputable mob, but as the most loyal subjects of His Majesty the King.
Tory filth!
The financing and settling upon this continent was spearheaded by our own mother country of England. And king and country are words that every proper English gentleman understands instinctively. The Colony of Connecticut was designed to be an extension of His Majesty. But in these last several years, the illegal and unjust Continental Congress has, with malice in the spirit of the highest treason, sought to replace our sovereign king with its own ruling tribunal. The action of taking up arms against our king and England are simply reprehensible. Such contemptible actions command every one of His Majesty's subjects here in this colony to crush such uprisings like a snake underfoot. It makes no difference whether it be neighbor or stranger. Open rebellion is simply pure evil.
It is a disgrace that I must stand here with this murderer, filthy traitor, Tory, mangy cur, enemy of his neighbors.
You sold your liberty for the crown.
We've heard enough of the king's promises.
This is what passes for ladies in Westmoreland. As a wise man hath saith, why should we give up the tyranny of one man 3,000 miles away, when we hazily have 3,000 tyrants within earshot of our own Westmoreland settlement?
He insults your kinsmen, and you do nothing? You say nothing? This man who insults your kinsmen and helps John Butler kill them, and we have no reaction?
Murderous traitor!
The valley has no place for traitors.
Blood's on your hands.
Get over
Support the king, the tyrant of the world, who knows nothing of the colonies here, so clueless that he has granted this land to two different colonies, Pennsylvania and Connecticut. He knows not even where we are on a map.
All right, I'll give you that one. If such a rebellion results in the creation of a perverse country of rustics and brigands, I shall wager that it shan't last long. The fact is, the sovereign nation of England has decreed that His Majesty's Royal Greens, led by one Major John Butler, shall...
Murderer from New York with his Iroquois allies.
Our friends, yes, shall move south along with quite a number of Iroquois to crush this odious rebellion. As for Mr. Anchor and myself, it is very clear that our duty lies in the assurance that the English crown succeeds in vanquishing this awful rebellion. To that end, our brethren in the Royal Greens and accompanying Indians needed to know the whereabouts of certain key resources. Major Butler is well aware of the strategic value Wyoming represents. We simply had to apprise his scouts of the whereabouts of those resources.
Conspirator and murder.
In the process, traitors who refuse to acknowledge His Majesty's dominion and renounce their support for this rebellion shall die a traitor's death. His Majesty has granted approval to pay the Indians by the scalp. Sadly, most in these parts would rather die as rebels than retain their dignity as Englishmen. To these poor souls I have no pity. As for myself, I shall remain, as always, dedicated to our king and our country. Long live the king, down with the rebels and the traitors, and up with the tar!
Ladies and gentlemen, I want to say that I think that was a fantastic performance.
That is born of woman hath but a short time to live, and is full of misery. Who cometh up and is cut down like a flower. O God, most mighty, O holy and merciful Savior, thou that worthy Judge eternal, suffer us not. Amen.
Sorry.
Here we go. 1, 2, 3.
All right, say 24th Connecticut.
24th Connecticut.
Connecticut.